My brother called my biggest client and told him I was sleeping with judges to win cases. He threatened to destroy my career unless I gave him money, housing, and whatever else he wanted. What he didn't know was that I'm a corporate lawyer who documents everything, and I had recorded every single threat he made. By the time I was done, he wasn't just broke. He had a $68,000 judgment against him, a permanent restraining order, and a criminal record for extortion. He thought he was blackmailing his quiet little sister. He was wrong. But to understand how it came to this, you need to know where it all began. I was 7 when I realized I was invisible. Not literally, of course. I could be seen, heard, touched, but in the ways that mattered, in the moments when love was distributed, when pride was shown, when someone asked, "How was your day?" I simply didn't exist. My brother Marcus did, though. God, did he ever. Marcus was 3 years older, and from the moment he could hold a crayon, he was exceptional. At least, that's what our mother told everyone. The pediatrician, the neighbors, the mailman, anyone who would listen to her catalog of his brilliance. He drew pictures that got taped to the refrigerator with ceremony. I drew pictures that got folded into grocery lists. He played piano badly at first, and our mother would sit beside him for hours, patient and glowing, as he fumbled through chopsticks. I taught myself to read at 4 years old, and when I showed her, she said, "That's nice, honey," without looking up from Marcus's math homework. The pattern was set early, and it calcified over the years like plaque in an artery, slowly choking out anything that might have resembled a normal sibling relationship. Our father left when I was 9. I remember the night clearly, not because of the screaming or the slammed door, but because of what my mother said afterward, in the kitchen, while I pretended to sleep on the couch. "It's fine," she told her sister on the phone. "Marcus needs a father figure, but we'll manage. He's so sensitive." Not "the kids need a father." Not "we'll get through this together." Marcus needs a father. I was right there, 10 feet away, invisible. After that, everything became about Marcus. His needs, his feelings, his future. Our mother worked 2 jobs to pay for his art classes, his music lessons, his private tutoring. I wore hand-me-downs from cousins. He got new clothes for the first day of school every year. I learned not to ask for things. I learned that needing something made you a burden, that wanting attention made you selfish, that the only way to survive was to become small, quiet, and self-sufficient. So I did. I stopped showing my mother my report cards. Straight A's didn't earn the reaction I'd once hoped for anyway. I got a job at 14, babysitting and tutoring, so I could buy my own books. I spent lunch periods in the library, alone, reading law journals I barely understood because they made me feel like there was a world beyond our small apartment where competence mattered more than being someone's favorite. Marcus, meanwhile, coasted. He was charming in the way that beautiful, thoughtless people often are. He'd forget assignments and teachers would give him extensions. He'd skip class and administrators would look the other way because he was going through a tough time, always going through something, always excused. And when he got into college on a half-merit, half-pity scholarship for art, you'd think he'd cured cancer from the way our mother celebrated. I got into Georgetown Law on a full academic ride 2 years later. She said, "That's wonderful, honey," and then spent the rest of dinner talking about Marcus's upcoming gallery show at a coffee shop in Baltimore. I stopped expecting anything different. I went to law school and buried myself in work. I didn't have time for the pain anymore. I graduated top of my class, took a position at a corporate firm in New York, and climbed. I climbed because it was the only thing I knew how to do. I climbed because every rung on that ladder was proof that I was something, even if my family never saw it. By 32, I was a senior associate at one of the most prestigious firms in the city. I had my own condo in Brooklyn, small but mine. I had respect. Clients sought me out specifically. I'd built a reputation for being meticulous, unshakable, and quietly brilliant. I'd built a life, and I'd done it alone. It was a Tuesday in March when Marcus called. I was in the middle of prepping for a deposition, a major corporate client, 8-figure contract dispute, the kind of case that could make or break a senior associate's path to partner. I'd been working 16-hour days for 3 weeks straight. I shouldn't have answered, but it was Marcus, and despite everything, despite the years of being overlooked and dismissed, some stupid, stubborn part of me still hoped that maybe this time he was calling because he cared, because he wanted to know how I was, because he'd finally seen me. "Hey," he said, his voice too casual, too light. "You busy?" I set down my pen. "Always. What's up?" "So, I had a little accident." My stomach dropped. "Are you okay?" "What happened?" I'm fine. Just skiing. Broke my leg. Fractured wrist. Nothing major." "Skiing?" I repeated. Marcus lived in Baltimore and hadn't mentioned a trip. "When?" "Where?" "Colorado. Last weekend." "Look, it's not a big deal, but I'm gonna need some time to recover, and my place isn't really set up for this. All those stairs, you know?" I didn't know. I'd never been to his apartment. "So I was thinking," he continued, not waiting for me to respond, "I could crash at your place for a few weeks, just until I'm back on my feet." Literally, the request landed like a stone in my chest. "Marcus, I'm in the middle of a huge case. I'm barely home." "I don't, come on, we're family. You have that extra bedroom just sitting there, right?" I did. I used it as an office. "It's not a good time," I said carefully. "I'm sorry about your leg, but I can help you find a short-term rental or a rental." "With what money?" He laughed, but there was an edge to it. "I'm between projects right now. I can't afford that." Between projects. He'd been between projects for as long as I'd known him as an adult. The gallery shows never sold enough. The freelance design gigs dried up. He lived off our mother's retirement fund and whatever he could charm out of friends. "I can lend you some money for—" "I don't want money," he cut me off. "I want my sister to help me out when I'm hurt." Is that really so much to ask? The guilt was immediate and familiar, a trained response I'd spent years in therapy trying to unlearn. But I held firm. "I'm sorry, Marcus. I really am, but my place isn't the right fit. Let me help you figure out something else." There was a long pause. "You know," he he said slowly. That's really disappointing. I thought you changed. Guess you're still the same selfish little girl you always were. The line went dead. I sat there, staring at my phone, feeling like I'd been punched. Selfish. The word rattled around in my head for the rest of the day, through the deposition prep, through my meeting with the client, through the silent subway ride home. By the time I collapsed into bed at midnight, I'd almost convinced myself to call him back, to apologize, to offer the room. Almost. 2 days later, I got a call from Richard Chin, the client I'd been prepping for. The 8-figure case, the make or break deposition. We need to talk, he said. No preamble, no warmth. My blood went cold. Of course. When works for you? Now. My office. I was there in 20 minutes, heart hammering, mind racing through every possible mistake I could have made. Richard was standing by the window when I arrived, arms crossed, face unreadable. I got an interesting call yesterday, he said without turning around. From your brother. The room tilted. My, what? Your brother Marcus. He wanted me to know that you've been falsifying evidence in your cases, that you're sleeping with judges to win favorable rulings, that you're, and I quote, ethically corrupt and dangerous to work with. I couldn't breathe. Richard, that's complete bullshit, he finished, finally turning to face me. I know that. I've worked with you for 3 years. I know exactly who you are. But the fact that he called me, that he knew enough about this case to target me specifically, that concerns me. I don't understand, I whispered. How did he get my number? How did he know about our case? That's what I'm asking you. I thought back. The family dinner 3 months ago, the one time I'd made the mistake of visiting our mother. Marcus had been there, half drunk, asking about my work with that fake interested smile he wore when he wanted something. I'd mentioned Richard's company in passing. Nothing detailed, nothing confidential, but apparently, enough. I'm so sorry, I said. I had no idea he would. I believe you, but I need you to handle this, quietly, quickly, before he decides to shop this story to anyone else. A rumor like that, even baseless, could damage both of us. I will. I'll take care of it. Richard nodded, but the warmth we'd built over years of successful cases was gone. In its place was something professional and distant. I'd been demoted from trusted counsel to liability. I called Marcus the moment I left the building. He didn't answer. I called again, and again. Finally, a text came through. Guess you should have let me stay. Want me to stop? Let's talk terms. I stood on the sidewalk in Midtown Manhattan, surrounded by thousands of people, and I had never felt more alone. This was blackmail. My brother was blackmailing me. I didn't sleep that night. I sat in my office-turned-guest room, staring at Marcus's text, reading it over and over until the words lost meaning. Let's talk terms. Like I was a negotiation. Like my career, my reputation, my entire life was a bargaining chip in his game of survival. I thought about calling our mother, explaining what he'd done, asking for help, for once, after 32 years of asking for nothing. But I already knew what she'd say. He's going through a hard time. You know how sensitive he is. Can't you just help him out? It's just a few weeks. Why do you always have to make everything so difficult? Because in her eyes, I was always the problem. The difficult one. The one who didn't understand family, who cared more about work than the people who loved her. Except they didn't love me. Not really. They loved the idea of me as a support system, a safety net, a resource to be tapped when needed and forgotten when not. I pulled up Marcus's call log on my phone. 3 calls in 2 years before this week. One on my birthday, 8 months ago, that lasted 47 seconds. One at Christmas, asking if I was coming to Mom's. One in July, asking to borrow money. That was it. That was the relationship I was supposed to sacrifice everything to preserve. And suddenly, sitting there in the dark, something inside me snapped. Not dramatically, not with rage or tears. It was quieter than that. It was the sound of a door closing, a lock clicking into place. I was done. Done being the invisible one. Done being the scapegoat. Done being the one who bent and broke and swallowed pain so everyone else could stay comfortable. If Marcus wanted war, I'd give him war. But I'd fight it my way. I started documenting everything. Every text message. Every voicemail. Every email. I created a dedicated folder and backed it up in 3 separate locations. Then I called Marcus. He answered on the first ring. Ready to talk terms? He sounded smug. I want to understand what you want from me, I said calmly. Specifically, I want the guest room, for as long as I need it, rent-free. And I want an apology for how you treated me. An apology. Yeah, you were cold, dismissive. I'm your brother, and you acted like I was some stranger asking for a handout. I turned on the voice recording app I'd queued up. And if I do that, you'll leave Richard Chin alone? You won't contact any of my other clients? That depends on how you treat me. I think we need to rebuild trust, don't you? So this isn't a one-time thing. You're saying you'll hold this threat over me indefinitely. A pause. I'm saying family takes care of family. And if you're not willing to do that, then yeah, maybe people should know what kind of person you really are. What kind of person is that, Marcus? The kind who fakes evidence, who sleeps her way to wins. The kind who, none of that is true. Doesn't matter if it's true. It matters if people believe it. And trust me, once I start talking to the right people, they'll believe it. Why are you doing this? For the first time, his voice hardened. Because I'm fucking tired of watching you succeed while I'm struggling. Because Mom spent my whole life telling me I was special, and now I'm 35 and broke and you're the golden child with the fancy job and the perfect life. Because it's not fair. There it was. The truth under all the charm and manipulation. He was jealous. He'd always been jealous. And our mother's favoritism hadn't protected him from failure. It had just taught him that he deserved success without effort. And when reality didn't comply, he broke. I'll think about it, I said quietly. Don't think too long. My next call is to the New York State Bar Association. He hung up. I saved the recording, labeled it extortion, March 15th, and added it to the folder. Then I called my law school roommate, Jennifer Park, who now worked as a criminal defense attorney. I need help, I said. And I need you not to ask questions yet. Jennifer came to my apartment that night with Chinese takeout and a legal pad. I played her the recording. She listened without interrupting, her expression growing darker with each second. When it finished, she set down her chopsticks. He's fucked. Tell me how to make sure of it. She smiled. It wasn't a nice smile. With pleasure. We worked through the night, building a strategy that was airtight, devastating, and completely legal. Step 1. Documentation. I already had the recording, but Jennifer had me compile everything else, the threatening texts, the call logs, the timeline of events. She helped me write a detailed declaration, sworn under penalty of perjury, outlining the blackmail and its impact on my career and mental health. Step 2. Preemptive strike with Richard Chen. I drafted an email to him, attaching the recording and documentation, explaining that I'd been the victim of extortion and was taking legal action. I wanted him to hear it from me first, with evidence, before Marcus could escalate. Step 3. Restraining order. Jennifer helped me file for an order of protection based on harassment and threats. In New York, threatening someone's livelihood counts as harassment. The recording alone was enough. Step 4. Civil suit. Defamation, intentional infliction of emotional distress, and attempted extortion. We'd hit him with everything. Step 5. Controlled confrontation. Before serving the papers, I'd give him one chance to walk away. Not because he deserved it, but because I wanted him to have the opportunity to incriminate himself further. You're sure about this? Jennifer asked as the sun started to rise. This is your brother. There's no going back from this. I thought about the 7-year-old girl who learned she was invisible. The 14-year-old who bought her own books because asking was shameful. The 29-year-old who got into Georgetown Law and heard "That's nice, honey," while her mother planned a party for Marcus's coffee shop art show. He stopped being my brother a long time ago, I said. I just didn't want to see it. I called Marcus 2 days later. Okay, I said. Let's meet. Talk this through. I knew you'd come around. He sounded victorious. We met at a coffee shop in Brooklyn, neutral territory. I got there early and chose a booth in the back. He arrived 15 minutes late, walking with a limp and a brace on his wrist. The skiing accident. Except Jennifer had done some digging. There was no skiing accident. There was a DUI. A car wrapped around a tree at 2 in the morning outside a bar in Baltimore. He'd been lucky. The other driver swerved in time. The limp and the brace were real. The story was not. But I didn't mention that yet. You look terrible, he said, sliding into the booth across from me. You need to take better care of yourself. I've been stressed. Well, that's why we're here. To de-stress. He smiled. So, I've been thinking about it, and here's what I need. He talked for 10 minutes straight. The room, rent-free, access to my car, an allowance for food and expenses. He'd pay me back once he got back on his feet, but there was no timeline for that. It wasn't a request. It was a list of demands. I listened without interrupting, my phone on the table between us, recording everything. When he finally finished, I leaned back. And if I don't agree to this, then I keep making calls. I've got a whole list of your clients, your colleagues, your boss. I'll tell everyone who'll listen that you're a fraud. Maybe I'll post about it online. Reddit, Twitter, wherever. You know how the internet is, even if it's not true. People love a scandal. You destroy my career. I'd tell the truth. He shrugged. How they interpret it is up to them. I nodded slowly. You know what's interesting? You keep saying you're going to tell the truth, but everything you've told me this week has been a lie. His smile faltered. What? The skiing accident. There was no skiing trip, Marcus. There was a DUI. You drove drunk and crashed your car. I have a police report. His face went white. How did you? I'm a lawyer. Finding public records is literally my job. That's private. It's a matter of public record. Just like this conversation is being recorded. I turned my phone so he could see the recording app, the timer showing 13 minutes and 42 seconds. The color drained from his face. You can't. I can. And I did. I have you on tape threatening to defame me, blackmailing me, admitting that your accusations are false. You tricked me. I documented you. There's a difference. He stood up abruptly. Delete that. No. Delete it right fucking now, or I swear to God. Or what? You'll call my clients? Go ahead. I've already sent them the full recording of your original threat, along with a declaration explaining that I'm a victim of extortion. They know everything. You have no leverage. He was shaking now, rage and panic fighting for control. Mom is going to hear about this. I'm sure she will. Feel free to tell her. I've got nothing to hide. You're really going to do this? Destroy your own brother? I stood up too, meeting his eyes for the first time without flinching. You tried to destroy me first. I'm just better at it than you are. I served him with a restraining order 3 days later. Jennifer handled it personally, meeting him at our mother's house with a process server. According to her, he'd tried to slam the door. The server wedged his foot in and handed him the papers anyway. The order was temporary but enforceable immediately. No contact, no harassment, no communication of any kind. Violation meant arrest. My mother called me within an hour. How could you do this? She sobbed. He's your brother. He's family. He blackmailed me, Mom. He was just upset. He didn't mean. He threatened to destroy my career unless I gave him money and housing. That's extortion. It's a crime. You're being dramatic. This is what happens when you care more about work than people. You've always been so cold. I'm done. My voice came out steady, calm. I'm done with this. With him. With being blamed for protecting myself. If you want to enable him, that's your choice. But I'm out. Don't you dare. I hung up. Then I blocked her number. The civil suit moved forward. Marcus tried to countersue, claiming defamation and emotional distress, but his case fell apart in the first hearing. He had no evidence, no credible witnesses, just anger and entitlement. My case, on the other hand, was airtight. The recordings, the texts, Richard Chen's deposition about the threatening call, Jennifer's testimony about the restraining order hearing. Marcus tried to represent himself for the first 2 months. He couldn't afford an attorney. It went exactly as well as you'd expect. The judge was a woman in her 60s who'd spent 30 years on the bench. She listened to the recordings with an expression of increasing disgust. When When Marcus tried to explain that he'd just been trying to get his sister's attention, she cut him off. Mr. Morrison, you didn't want attention. You wanted money and shelter, and when your sister declined, you attempted to blackmail her by threatening her career. This court does not look kindly on extortion, regardless of your familial relationship. She ruled in my favor on every count. Damages, $50,000 for defamation and emotional distress. Permanent restraining order, no contact, ever. Legal fees, $18,000. Marcus didn't have $68,000. He didn't have $6,800. The judgment would follow him for years, accruing interest, destroying his credit, making it nearly impossible to rent an apartment or get a decent job. He'd tried to ruin me. Instead, he'd ruined himself. I didn't feel victorious when it was over. I felt tired. Therapy helped. I'd been going for years, but after the lawsuit, I went twice a week. My therapist, Dr. Reeves, helped me process the grief, because it was grief, even though Marcus was still alive. I was mourning the family I'd never had, the mother who never saw me, the brother who only noticed me when he needed something, the childhood I'd spent trying to earn love that was never available. Dr. Reeves said something that stuck with me. You can't win a game where the rules keep changing. The only way to win is to stop playing. I'd stopped playing, and for the first time in my life, I felt like I could breathe. Richard Chen called me a month after the judgment. I wanted to apologize, he said, for my initial reaction. I should have trusted you from the beginning. You were protecting your interests. I understand. Still, I should have known better. You've never given me a reason to doubt you. We settled back into our professional relationship, but something had shifted. He referred me to 3 new clients in the following months. One of them mentioned Richard had specifically told him I was the most ethical attorney he'd ever worked with. The case that had almost been destroyed became my biggest success. The deposition went flawlessly. We won a favorable settlement. My firm made me a partner 6 months ahead of schedule. I'd survived. More than that, I'd succeeded. But success wasn't victory. The victory was quieter than that. It was the day I stopped checking my phone for messages from family members who never cared. It was the night I had dinner with Jennifer and laughed until my stomach hurt over something stupid. It was the morning I woke up and realized I hadn't thought about Marcus in 3 days. It was learning that peace wasn't something you earned through perfection. It was something you claimed by refusing to accept less than you deserved. Last month, I got a letter from my mother. I almost threw it away without opening it, but curiosity won. It was short, 3 paragraphs. She missed me. She didn't understand why I was being so stubborn. Marcus was sorry. He'd told her so. Couldn't we all just move past this and be a family again? I read it twice. Then I folded it carefully, placed it back in the envelope, and put it in the recycling bin. There was no anger, no tears, no impulse to respond or defend or explain. Just a gentle, final letting go. Some people think forgiveness means reconciliation. It doesn't. Forgiveness, for me, meant accepting that they would never be what I needed, that their love was conditional, transactional, and ultimately hollow, and that none of that was my fault. I'd spent 32 years trying to be good enough, small enough, easy enough to love. I was done shrinking. I bought a house last week, a real one, with a yard and 3 bedrooms. One for me, one for an office, and one that stays empty because I don't owe anyone access to my space, my peace, or my life. I've started painting again, something I loved as a kid but gave up when I realized no one would tape my drawings to the refrigerator with the same ceremony they showed Marcus. I'm not good at it, but I'm learning, and I'm doing it for me. Jennifer asked me last week if I regretted any of it, the lawsuit, the estrangement, the permanence of cutting off my family. I thought about it. About the little girl who learned to be invisible. About the woman who learned to be unbreakable. No, I said finally. I don't regret protecting myself. She squeezed my hand. Good. You shouldn't. There are still hard days. Days when I see a mother and daughter laughing in the grocery store and feel the absence like a bruise. Days when I wonder what it would have been like to have a brother who actually loved me. But mostly, there's silence. And for once in my life, silence doesn't feel like punishment. It feels like peace. Marcus never apologized. Not really, but I stopped waiting for it. I stopped waiting for any of them to see me, because I finally saw myself. And that was enough. They say blood is thicker than water, but they forget the full quote. The blood of the covenant is thicker than the water of the womb. The family you choose matters more than the family you were born into. I chose myself, and I'd make that choice again, every single time. For once, I wasn't the invisible one. I was free.